Hey everyone! I'm super excited to make scones with you. I'm going to give it some time to let a few more people get on, just make sure everyone's here. We are making classic cream scones. It is a French, I was talking to someone about this earlier. I studied in France at Le Cordon Bleu, and we're making a British pastry today because I love them so much. The thing about this recipe is you can completely make it your own. I'm going to show you how you can do that. They freeze incredibly well. You can bake off 2 today and save the other 6 or 7 in the freezer. You bake it off straight frozen. It's absolutely wonderful. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to try and pay attention to the bottom of the feed at the same time. I'll give it just a few more minutes. If you don't know who I am, let me introduce myself. I'm Sarah. I started Beurre Pastry Shop. It is pronounced Beurre. It's beurre, butter in French. In 2015, and I'm super fortunate because the company we started as a delivery service, and so I'm fortunate I'm still baking, still delivering during this time, but I'm thrilled that you guys can join me for whoever is in quarantine, whether you're sick or not, whether you're just protecting yourself and your friends. Like, I'm glad we can get together and have some fun today, and make this sort of weird digital life work out a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna share the recipe with you again right here. If you don't have all of these ingredients, we can make some substitutions, and I'm going to tell you how to make those substitutions as we go. But for visual learners, it's going to be dry ingredients first here. These are going to come first. Then the butter is going to come second, and then we'll work with our wet ingredients. I'm going to show you how to combine everything really quickly. If you don't have a food processor, that's absolutely okay. I'm going to show you how to do it by hand first. One thing that some people might not know, when I at least went to Le Cordon Bleu for pastry, we didn't use machines. They didn't have, food processors or stand mixers for everyone. So we learned how to do everything entirely by hand, and it's cool. It's a pain sometimes, but it's cool. First thing we need to do, temperature control. If you wonderful bakers were thoughtful enough to pull your butter out in advance to bring it to room temperature, throw it in the freezer right now. We need cold butter for this recipe because it's going to be cut into the other dry ingredients. So throw your butter in the freezer if you left it out. Kudos, but not for this recipe. And other ones, scones like it hot. Hashtag scones like it hot. Turn your oven high. It's going to be 425, and we want that preheated and ready to go for when these scones are going in the oven. It's like a pet peeve of mine when I'm like ready and like I haven't preheated the oven, so I try and do that first thing every time. Okay. If you are throwing your butter in the freezer, just a note, you might want to cube it beforehand. I'm going to try and draw out our dry ingredients time so that that's cold enough for you to cut it in. And if not, it's okay. It's all going to be fine. If you don't have unsalted butter, you can use salted butter. That's totally fine. I like to cook with salted butter. That's what I grew up on. The reason we use unsalted butter in baking is you want to be able to control your salt content. So if you are using salted butter, each brand has a different quantity of salt. Just maybe cut the salt in half for this recipe. That's totally fine. I want everyone to be able to bake today. Thanks for letting me know it was backwards. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to be sharing the amounts of every ingredient. I didn't even think to print it backwards. We're starting with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. If you are I've never made this recipe with an alternative flour. Absolutely try it out. It's always gonna change the density a little bit. You could use whole wheat flour. You could use almond flour. It's gonna change it, but the scones will turn out okay. It'll just be different. 2 cups all-purpose flour. You're gonna put in 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. And you can make brown sugar scones, that's fine. It increases the moisture a little bit. So you might want to add just a little bit less when we get to the wet ingredients. That's totally fine. So 2 cups all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup granulated sugar. In here I've got 1/2 teaspoon salt and 1 tablespoon baking powder. The thing about baking powder is it's not that easy to substitute. If you have cream of tartar and baking soda on hand, you can sub it out one part baking soda and 2 parts cream of tartar. I hope you have baking powder, because I don't even think I keep cream of tartar on hand at home. The reason I am coming to you from my apartment, my husband, my apartment, I'm wearing slippers right now, because I tend to bake in the kitchen in the early hours. Oh, hold on. Let me yank this off. There we go. I tend to bake, I'm in the kitchen very early, so no one needs to be up with me at that time. You're gonna whisk it together. Now, this is if you're doing it by hand. You're welcome to put it directly into the food processor, pulse it. I'm gonna finish mine in the food processor. And you can just pulse the ingredients together. Just give the dry ingredients a whisk, and once again, it's 2 cups flour, a 1/4 cup granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and a tablespoon baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon salt. And then we're gonna get our cold butter. So I sort of tried to draw this out as much as possible. If you have room temperature butter, still give this a go. And again, this is if you're doing it with your gorgeous hands. If you have a pastry blender, that works too. So this is 1/2 cup, which is the equivalent of 1 stick of butter. And there's this technique called sablage, actually. It's it means sand. Sablé cookies, you might have heard of. And you're turning this into sand. Your goal is that the butter is going to be pea-sized by the end of it, and you count coins with it. So this is the French baking technique that I learned, because we do it by hand. So you're counting coins with the butter, and this is just if you're using your hands, which you absolutely can. Sometimes people cut in butter with knives. You can use again a pastry blender, and all of that works out well. So you're looking for the butter to be pea-sized. Now I'm going to show you, if you're using a food processor, getting this bowl out of here. Put all your ingredients into the food processor. I might make a mess, but that's why I've got an apron on today and slippers. All right. Now, for the food processor, you do not want to just turn this on. You're going to pulse it, because you don't want to overdo it. I'll explain, but scones can be tough sometimes, and there is a reason for that. And it tends to be us just caring too much about them. You don't want to care too much about scones. All right, pulse it. And I'm going to show you the texture you're looking for. Oh, sorry, yes. If anyone's lagging, or if I'm lagging, all the dry ingredients, all-purpose flour, or if you're just tuning in, salt, baking powder, granulated sugar, they're all in the food processor if you're doing it by hand in a bowl, and we're cutting the butter in, and the butter should be cold and cubed. And this video, I'm going to post it afterwards too, so if something goes horribly wrong, or you want to try again, try a new flavor, that's fine. So pulse the butter. Now what I like to do after the butter's been pulsed a little bit, this is when I like to add spices. So if you're making, get creative here, whatever you have on hand, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, clove, allspice, you can play around with it. Typically, for something this quantity, you're going to keep it at 1 teaspoon or less of each, cinnamon being the one you can use the most of. I have a blade attachment in the food processor. Thank you. It's a blade attachment. Just a regular blade. I can show you actually. Hold on 1 second. This guy. And you're just going to pulse with it. So what I have on hand is, I have mandarin oranges, I have cuties, and I have dried cranberries. So I'm making cranberry orange scones today. So I'm just going to put a little bit of zest. So zest and spices go in now. Or if you want to make Mexican hot scones, you put in cayenne pepper right now. I've never tried that. That actually, someone do that and let me know what you think. And if you are zesting, keep in mind the white part. I think it's called the pith. Someone correct me on that. It's tart and bitter, and you don't want the white part. So I added 1/2 teaspoon of zest. I'm gonna pulse it just a little bit more and show you what I have here. So what you're gonna look for is for the butter to be about pea-sized, and then you want it to hold the shape of your hand just for a second before it crumbles out. So mine has a little more to go. Again, we're looking for sandy texture, not too far. You can absolutely add jam. That's totally fine. You're going to add it during the pith. Thank you. Pip is right, apparently. You're gonna add jam during the wet ingredients portion, which is when I'm gonna add some juice as well from these cuties that I have. Okay, let's see. So you want it to hold shape for just a second, and then it crumbles apart. That's perfect. Now, you're going to put this in a bowl. So if you had that was my oven getting ready. I hope everyone's oven is preheating to 425 right now. If you're already in a bowl, you're a step ahead of the rest of us using a food processor today. You want to get all of it out. Be careful, this blade is super sharp, it's easy to cut yourself, and I'm going to get my food processor out of the way now. Okay. Now this is where, and you're going to want to add these before you add any liquid. This is where you're going to add your larger ingredients. So if you have nuts, for instance, I always recommend using toasted nuts. Throw them in like a 350-degree oven for 5 to 7 minutes. You can put it in a 425, just watch it. As soon as the nuts become fragrant, pull them out, or else they'll begin to burn in that moment. I'm adding my cranberry now, because again, I have it on hand. And that's the thing, you can seriously really make this your own. You don't want to add more of a cup to this size recipe if you're doubling. It's a straight double if you're going to double this recipe. I'm going to add about half a cup of cranberries and toss it back in with the hands. Okay, now we're going to get to wet ingredients, which includes any flavorings you might have. If you're throwing in any other sweeteners too at this point, if you have, like, you want to add a little bit of honey. The thing about wet ingredients is it needs to be, oh, my dad, hi dad and mom. We've got family all over the Bay Area. If my niece or nephew is watching, hi Caleb and Cassia, thank you for joining me today. You have to be careful with the quantity of wet ingredients you add, because I'm giving you sort of the base recipe. If you add more than maybe 2 tablespoons of wet ingredients, you're going to want to add a little bit extra flour in the beginning, which you could add in now, that would be fine. I like to add all my wet ingredients to 1 measuring cup, which means, just for easier cleanup, there's enough going on, which means you want to do your liquid first. So heavy whipping cream, 3/4 cup. And then you can crack your egg directly into this. That's absolutely fine. And we're going to put our vanilla extract in this too. If you are making almond scones, you can sub in almond extract instead. That's absolutely fine. It's going to be less than this. A lot of extracts are super potent, and vanilla is just sort of our base. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. In here is 3/4 cup of heavy cream, 1 egg, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then I am adding some cutie juice. I'm adding some mandarin orange juice to this. Let me peel this first. Feel free to add anything you want. I almost cheated. I knew that I said we were using what we had on hand, and then I was in the kitchen the other day and I saw I had poppy seeds, and I knew I had a lemon, and I thought, no, what do I actually have on hand? I don't keep poppy seeds on hand at home. What's funny is, okay, I'm going to go for 2 tablespoons here. You'd think that, I don't know, I would maybe be well stocked at home, and I just realized I'm not very well stocked. Okay. You just sort of want enough to flavor it lightly. I always add toppings to scones at the end of this. You're welcome not to. I'll show you exactly what I do, but I'm also going to do mandarin orange glaze as well at the end, because I can't resist. If you are the type of person who, if you've had the maple, honey oat, or Irish cream scones that I sell, this is not that base. Those are a totally different base of scones, which I can do sometime, actually. But if you're looking for that recipe, this is completely different. You can absolutely use fresh blueberries, and I use blueberries whole when I make blueberry scones. If you want to add any fresh berries at this point, absolutely go for it. Honestly, you can't go wrong. because you want to wash your blueberries beforehand, I would recommend patting them off. I dump sort of the wet blueberries out of the colander onto paper towels, and I dab them dry just because you don't want to add more moisture than you were intending, but fresh berries work. The one thing I wouldn't recommend adding raw, unless you're feeling like experimenting, and let me know how it goes, are any apples, pears, those fruits. You can try dicing them really small and adding them in. When I've made pear scones in the past, I've always poached them in advance and then added even just half cooked of those items. But still, those items make delicious scones. It just requires one extra step of getting them soft enough before you add them to the base. Okay, I'm whisking together the wet ingredients here. And you want it so that the egg, you're not going to get this, weird egg white in the middle of one of the scones. I should mention, if you have a chunk of butter in your dry base right now, that's absolutely fine. Again, scones don't want to be overworked, and here's why. This is our big moment. Scones are divas. They don't want to be touched. They don't want to be messed with. If you want a good scone, you want to touch it as little as possible. So we are going to do this part by hand. I like keeping sort of a dirty hand and a clean hand here, just so you have a hand you can work with. And you might want to get a little bit of flour in a side bowl. I just have a measuring cup here, so that it's handy for you. I have my rolling pin ready as well. You don't need a rolling pin. If you want to use a rolling pin or to roll it out but don't have one, a wine bottle works great, full or otherwise. Scones like social distancing. Thank you so much. That's exactly it. Scones just want to be by themselves and not be touched by anyone. Oh my goodness. Surely people have wine bottles around right now. You can use a wine bottle. You don't have to, and you don't need a rolling pin at all. It's actually optional. Crazy enough to think. So I say get your base ready. I'm using a marble slab. Now, I'm lucky enough to have a marble slab that I can just keep at home. One day my mom went into the attic and said, yeah, I have a marble slab in the attic. Would you like it? And I said, yes, I would love to keep a marble slab at home. So prep your surface. Just make sure it's a clean surface. And remember, if you have anything around it, it might get flour on it and you might have to do extra cleaning. So just make space for yourself. You know what I mean? You need a good workspace. Lightly dust it. The one thing people tend to do is over flour surfaces, and you don't need to do that. It'll be okay. Lots of empty wine bottles these days. Absolutely, you're cracking me up. So make a well in the center of your dry ingredients here, and I'm gonna get a spatula to get all the wet ingredients out. And again, in mine, I now have mandarin orange zest. I have mandarin orange juice in the wet ingredients. I have dried cranberries now in the dry ingredients. You're going to be so light about this. Even if you have a few dry crumbs in the bottom of the bowl, let them go. Absolutely let them go. You've got more important things happening, which is scones that you don't want to end up tough. The reason things you overwork end up tough, it's because once the water hits the flour, that is when wheat gluten starts to develop, and the more you work it, the stronger the protein bonds become. So if you've ever had like a tough pie crust, it's another tough pie crust, man. It's probably because they've been overworked, and no one wants a tough scone. So I'm very gently mixing, and it's messy. It's going to be messy. Enjoy it. How frequently do you have scone dough covering your hands? Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Hello, everyone. I mean, thank you for joining me. I'm thrilled to be doing this today. This video will, if you're just watching and you're not cooking, this video, I'm going to post this video to the Instagram page and the Facebook page, so you can bake along later. Okay. And I do have, if you have a pastry scraper, feel free to use it now. If you don't, it's absolutely fine. Everyone should be washing their hands all the time. Just go wash your hands. I'm going to wash my hands right now. This is such a mess. Okay. And I did hear, as I'm at the sink, that we might have some Sequoia High School culinary arts students that are distance learning right now. If you guys are watching, thank you for tuning in. I know your teacher told me that you have a little buzzword, which I do have planned at the end of this. Okay. So I actually forgot to bring home, I have round cookie cutters. I forgot to bring them home with me, which is absolutely fine. So I'm going to do what I'm going to recommend you guys do, which is we're going to make triangular scones. You can use anything to cut anything. That's one thing I think people don't realize is use a wine bottle. It doesn't matter. You don't need a French tapered rolling pin to do this. You do need an oven. But otherwise, I say all bets are off. You can do whatever you like. Lightly flour the top. And I'm going to use a rolling pin because I like flat scones, meaning a flat top. Very gently roll it out. And if you're cutting like I am, you're not using a cutter, I'm using a knife to cut is what I mean. You do want to keep it as circular as possible. So roll it out very gently. Guys, we're going to have scones ready in a half hour. This is amazing. And you want it to be between 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick. It'll take just a little longer if it's thicker. Mine is a little too thick right now. Okay. Now, if you do want round scones and you don't have round cutters, I don't think I'd have round cutters if I weren't a baker. Just being realistic with you. You can use anything. I have a mason jar here. You can use a mason jar. I always recommend you dip the top in flour and then just punch it out. The thing is, excuse me, if you're using cutters, if you're cutting it all, that means you will have a second roll. You have to be just as delicate that second roll. Divas, remember, absolute divas. Don't want to be touched. Social distancing. Otherwise, if you're making triangles with me, which is a classic, that's a classic scone shape, I would recommend you just start by cutting it in half, and it might be a little sticky, that's okay. Then cut those halves in half and continue until you have 8 slices. I'm going to add a little bit of flour to the tip. Be very careful if you're doing what I'm doing. Adding flour to the edge of my knife. I don't think anyone teaches this because it's dangerous. All right, there we go. And one more to get 8 triangles. Now, if you have any pieces that are sticking out, it might burn. So you want to make sure they're as even as possible. I've got a flat spatula. You can use a regular spatula right here. I'm probably going to use both. And to just sort of jimmy the slices out. So here's just sort of one slice of scone. And I'm going to make 4 scones, and I'm going to show you how to freeze the other 4, if you'd like to know. It's just my husband and myself at home, and we do not need more baked goods around all the time. I don't bring home a lot of the product that I sell, but I still like to experiment. I'm hoping to attempt bagels tomorrow. I don't think anyone would want to do a first time through a recipe with me, but if you want to, we could. I tend to talk at the recipe and talk back at it and say, why would it be like that? And then say, oh, I didn't know that's the right, poaching liquid for a bagel, for instance. So I've got 4 scones here. And I love toppings. So I'm going to put on some toppings after I wash my hands. You don't have to. You can pop them in the oven right now. And again, that oven is hot and ready for us. Thank goodness. I have turbinado sugar. Some people suggest egg washing scones. I don't egg wash scones. You are welcome to if you want to. I like the color that scones come out on their own. So you can egg wash first before you put any toppings on. I'm going to do 2 with turbinado sugar, which is sugar in the raw. It's this sort of thick sugar. I love the way it looks on a scone. You can use regular granulated sugar. Don't use powdered sugar. You can cook things covered in powdered sugar. Whatever you experiment with, let me know. I want to see all of your results. I want to know what flavors you made. I want to know if they taste good or what changes you would make. I'm certainly going to let you know if mandarin, orange, cranberry was a bad combination. I'll let you know what my husband thinks too. We're ready to bake. Okay, So when it comes to baking, one, be careful. I always have the racks, set your timer for 5 minutes. Every oven is different. I always have 2 racks in the oven, one higher than the other. I'm a huge believer in turning your pan around halfway through. One, it forces you to check on it, and you need to check on it. And you can see what your time, are you halfway through? Do you actually need more time? And then ovens have hot spots. I don't have a convection oven at home. So you need to adjust you can't adjust the hot spots, so you need to adjust what's in the hot spots. So I've got 5 minutes on the timer. We'll see halfway through. Let me check your questions. Some people do brush them with milk. Yes. I worked at a place that brushed them with a heavy cream plus egg wash. I think that can be nicer than brushing them with egg wash. Doing a milk brush instead. Also, that helps the topping stick. So I think that's a good point. Take your time cutting. Let me know who's making what flavors. I'm curious. And in the meantime, take your time. I'm going to pull out a pan and show you how to freeze these. Now, I forgot to mention this and they're already in the oven, guys. If you don't have parchment, that's absolutely fine. I'm sort of trying to tell you what is absolutely necessary, and they might stick a little to your pan. That's totally fine. I'm actually going to move the camera for a second because you're on a cabinet and I have parchment inside. Hang tight. If you get seasick, close your eyes. Okay, we're back. I grabbed the wrong parchment, but of course I do keep parchment squares at home. Dried blueberry sounds so good. Yes. Oh, that sounds delicious. To freeze these guys, get any pan. It doesn't matter at all. And then you can do up to 3 layers. Typically, that's not enough weight to compress them because you don't want thin scones. So I'm going to I can fit all of mine in 1 layer, I think. And then they won't stay like this. So you can wrap them, throw them into your freezer, gently place them into your freezer. And then tomorrow, you can pull it out of your freezer, shove all of these, they're perfectly, however you cut them today. They'll keep their shape. You can throw them in a plastic bag, and then they can be sort of shoved into your freezer. Like, oh, this can go in the back corner. It won't be destroyed. But for the first freeze, you want it on an even level, because you can literally pull the bag out of the freezer. Pull the scones out, throw them on a pan, and throw them in the oven that you already preheated, because it's the worst when your oven isn't preheated. Plain scones sounds great. Absolutely. Yes. I hope you like them. I love plain scones because I'm the type of person who slathers them in everything I can. I'm a huge clotted cream fan. Jam, lemon curd. I was just laughing at my own joke. We could do a quarantine series where by the end of it, everyone can have a full tea service with everything that we've made. So if you want to make jam, a lot of this business is me either being curious about learning new things or realizing I needed to teach myself something that I didn't know so I could make a good product. So I learned canning, and I don't have any of the special canning tools, but I just released them actually again. The peanut butter and strawberry jam bars are my favorite bar ever, and I wanted to make my own strawberry jam. And so a few weeks ago, I spent all day in the kitchen just canning so that I'd have jam for the season. It probably will make 3 sets of bars, 1 minute on those guys. But if you guys want to learn how to can or make jam or any of that, you don't have to actually process them. Meaning the once they're full of the jam you've made, you boil them for 15 minutes so that they're shelf stable. No additives in it, but they are shelf stable because you process them. It sucks the air out. So I thought that would be really fun. I'm so glad you're interested in a quarantine service. I think that would be incredibly fun, and we could make all the tea. All the scone stuff first. We could make lemon curd. We could make jam. And I'm actually, I'm gonna get my big. This you might not have on hand, but Get my big plastic wrap out because I can't live without it. Oh, my timer's about to go off, and wrap these puppies and throw them in the fridge. Freezer. Throw them in the freezer. And shove those other things around. Okay, let's check on our scones. I'm going to show you what they look like about halfway. At this temperature, they don't take too long. One reason scones like it hotter in the oven is because they do their best rising at higher temperatures, and you want them to rise first, just gloriously, and then finish baking. So let's see what we've got. Ooh, my gosh, they're rising. I would say these are almost halfway. Be very careful. Everything is hot. And the ends aren't burning yet, which makes me incredibly happy. So I'm going to turn them around 360, and then I'm going to move them to the top rack I have. Even baking, hot spots, these are all things you sort of have to contend with. But I know there's this stigma with baking that you can't be creative, and I just abhor. I don't think that's true at all. There is science behind it. You have to get certain things right. But if you used almond milk today, if you used half and half instead, whatever you used, you can do that. You can absolutely sub it out. You can add mandarin orange juice, and it'll be okay. You know what I mean? So you can absolutely get creative, but you do have to have your basics down. I think my favorite scone, and I don't sell very many different types of scones online, but I am constantly taking custom orders of all different types of things. It's sort of my favorite thing to do because I need to, sometimes I need to learn how to do a new thing to execute that. For instance, I've actually never made donuts before, I don't think. They're not that tricky, but there's certain things you need to get right, and I've been communicating with this amazing woman whose wedding is later this year, and the creativity behind what she's looking for in a dessert bar is so cool. And because it's my favorite thing to keep learning and keep baking and try new things, I'm thrilled I get to be in this business for sure. If you don't know what Beurre Pastry Shop typically makes or anything like that, you can go online at www.beurrepastrysshop.com. That's Beurre. You can actually see it on my shirt. You're watching a video. The link is in my profile on Instagram and on Facebook. And you can just even browse the menu. We started with just pommiers, which is the French pastry that you might have seen, bars and brownies and cookies, and expanded into breakfast once I started farmers markets about 2 years ago. And farmers markets are still open. If anyone is still looking for that type of fresh produce, it has been deemed an essential service. So check first, but most farmers markets are allowed to be open. It's possible that some closed due to the shelter in place. But if you're near the Half Moon Bay community, or that's where you found Beurre Pastry Shop, we will still be opening on April 4th, which is not this Saturday, but next Saturday. Things will look a little different for sure. We're going to have everything individually packaged. It's supposed to be quick stops like a grocery store, so there won't be any eating on the premises, but we'll still be there. So I'm super excited that we're still allowed to open. Finally, cinnamon rolls and mass will be happening, but still testing this. Don't quote me on it, but right now we're hoping to have packs of 2 cinnamon rolls baked individually so that it's a lot quicker than what we've had in the past. It is grocery only, so that is a bit of a change. If you typically like to get gifts of jewelry, those items won't be there. Honey will be there, soaps will be there, we will be there, pastries will be there. Beckman's will still be there if you're looking for bread. So that's nice. Oh my gosh, we've got the whole gangs together. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. We've got 2 more minutes on the oven. Do you guys have any questions about this or anything else? I will say the poll that I put up was puff pastry, classic scones, which we are making, or Swiss meringue buttercream for sort of the first tutorial. Now I have to be honest, puff pastry and scones tied. I ended up picking scones because it is a lot easier than puff pastry and it's less time consuming. So I'm hoping everyone has been able to work together today and figure out what's going on. Thank you for your questions. I'm sorry if I did miss any. I am going to try to do puff pastry. I really want to do it. It's my favorite French pastry. I still roll it by hand like I was taught in France. I don't have a sheeter in the kitchen or anything like that. But I think if everyone, you don't have to make puff pastry all the time, but how cool to have it at your disposal if you've decided, darn it, I'm making beef Wellington and I'm making my own puff pastry. I mean, it's delicious. Trust me, it's different. But I'm pretty sure, someone correct me, that the typical frozen puff pastry you get in stores is actually vegan. I think it uses pressed oil and not butter, and Beurre means butter. We use butter here. So, okay, I'm going to check these scones and let you know. Ooh, I think they're almost ready. One tip I have, if I can't feel any of my fingertips anymore, but to push the sides are ready. I'm going to give them 2 minutes. And what I'm going to do for those 2 minutes is show you glazes. Oh my gosh, they're so big. Holy smokes. If you used a cutter, they're probably smaller. I typically make them smaller. So for glazes, I'm going to pull out powdered sugar. I only make powdered sugar glazes for the most part. And today I'm making a mandarin orange glaze. You're welcome to make whatever you'd like. Maple glazes are fantastic. Honey glazes, any fruit glazes works great. What you want is for the center to be set in the scones. And I'm going to show you as soon as this is up what a good scone, a finished scone looks like. It'll get golden brown around the edges and the center should be set. I know a lot of cookie dough you're able to pull out when the center's still a little wobbly. And that's because the cookie dough, it settles into itself as it cools down. Scones don't do that. So they do need to be fully baked. You can't sort of take them out a little early. But these are super close. I'm going to get right up in your faces with a hot pan and show you what they should look like. 1 minute, guys. For the glazes, just a bowl, and I always just start with a little bit of powdered sugar. I'm only making 2 scones. That was a lot of powdered sugar. I'm only making a glaze for 2 scones. So I'm going to get some mandarin orange juice. And then if you don't have enough, just cut it with cream, cut it with milk, cut it with whatever liquid you'd like. I'd say anything except water is okay. Water will just thin it out so much you'll have to add a ton of powdered sugar back in to get the thickness you're looking for, and that's never good. I'm going to show you the consistency I like for scone glaze, but you're welcome to get whatever consistency you want. The thing is, it could the thinner, the longer it takes to set. And glazes actually like it hot too. So don't throw anything glazed into the fridge. Give me 1 second to stop that beeping. Because glazes are trying to dry and the fridge is an incredibly humid place. So if you don't give it air to dry, it's not going to set. It's actually going to get sticky. Is there anything worse than a cold, sticky glaze? Yes, there are worse things than that. Okay, so these scones, ooh, they're perfect. Okay, I'm going to bring 1 scone to you on a spatula so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is one with turbinado sugar on top. It's golden brown along the edges. You can even see the bottom. I'm going to show this to you. There we go. Golden brown on bottom, and the center, it springs back when I push down on it. If your finger is sinking into the center, it's not ready. Keep it in the oven. And don't forget to turn your ovens off as soon as your scones are ready. All right. A little more juice for this glaze. Mandarin oranges don't give off a lot of juice. That could be because they're small. It's just a guess of mine. I couldn't cheat, guys, and take those poppy seeds from the kitchen. It was just wrong. Does anyone here keep poppy seeds on hand? I'm sure there are better bakers out there right now watching me I do not keep a well-stocked kitchen in any way. telling you, I keep salted butter on hand, which again is absolutely fine. Everything can be adjusted. All right. Now I'm going to do what I think I said, which is cut this with milk so that I can get a nice smooth glaze to go on top of these. Actually, I have cream right here. Cream will be thicker. It'll take a little bit more to thin it out, and that's absolutely fine. It's totally up to you. I know I do a cream glaze on their strawberries and cream scones. I picked the biggest whisk on earth for this bowl. Look at this. Ooh, but this consistency is perfect. I'm the first one to tell you that I never get the glaze consistency right the first time. Okay, can you see how that's thick? Ooh, this is gonna be so good. Go, and I'm gonna get a little spoon, this guy, and I'm gonna move this over. Don't forget, everything is hot. I'm the first person to go into the oven to pull a cast iron pan out with bare hands. It's a terrible trait. So I'm gonna glaze the non-sugared scones, and the heat will help it run off. If it's too thick and you don't want to sort of spread it yourself, which I'm doing a little bit of, throw it back in the oven is cooling right now, for instance. You can put it back in and the oven will help melt it a little bit. It'll run off more. I am not going to do that. I'm just going to let the heat of the scones do their work. And it'll take a bit for this glaze to dry. Just so you know, there is some waiting involved. And I'm going to use a flat spatula just to get it off the sides here. Okay. Now to help these cool, let me get a plate. And I'm going to plate these up and show you, and I'll probably try one. And I'll be honest and tell you whether or not I like it. I should say in advance, I'm not a cranberry person either. And yet, if I put it in something baked, I'll eat anything baked, basically. I used to be so much pickier. And my glaze is still runny, but it will set in time. And again, if this is just for you, you know what I mean? Don't worry too much. See how hot that is. Can't feel my fingertips. Are we wondering why I can't feel my fingertips at this point? Okay, did I miss some questions? Yes, Mr. Teacher Chef, the Sequoia High School students I addressed, my brother teaches them. He and I were both in France at the same time. He was studying cuisine while I was studying pastry. He went back to London at Le Cordon Bleu in London to finish with a grand diplôme, meaning cuisine and pastry. He's killer. I still text him all of my questions about food. I just asked him one. Oh my gosh, I wish I remembered what it was. He got one the other night. His name is Jacob. Jacob, I was making pasta, always trying something new, and it was a little chewy. Is that because, I didn't knead it enough? I still ask him all my questions. He seriously is my brother. Thank you for joining me, by the way. We've got scones here, guys. Okay, I'm going to try a little piece of the non-glazed one while those set. Because I feel like I have to. Plus, it smells so good in here. I hope you're getting the same aroma at home. Here's the thing. I can taste the orange in the non-glazed one. That's when you know you've done it. Hold on, I'm taking a sip of coffee. It's coffee time. If you can taste the ingredients that you put in, you did it. That's phenomenal. I can taste the orange, and it is perfectly paired with cranberry. There's a reason those two are married so frequently. I really want to know what you made. And if maybe you put in lemon zest and you can't taste it, add more next time. That's the beauty of this. It's very hard to mess up a recipe like this, no matter what people tell you. Besides treating them like the divas they are, it's really hard to mess up scones. So we've got scones, guys. Please let me know what you made. Send me pictures. I'm going to post this video, comment on it, or direct message me, or throw them in your story and tag. It's at Beurre Pastry Shop. I want to hear what you made. I want to hear everything. Oh my god, I stand Mr. Murata too. What? My brother. For the Sequoia High School students, they have been patiently waiting for a buzzword, which is, how can it not be, I don't have one anymore, Clementine. That's your buzzword. And your teacher knows, Jacob knows, that that's your buzzword. Thank you guys so much. If you would want to do something like this again, let me know. More importantly, I want to hear exactly what you made. And if you do want to check out products, we still do local delivery all over the Bay Area. We're doing, take care of yourself gifts, thinking of you gifts, anything treat yourself gifts. Head to the website, www.perfpastryshop.com. In the meantime, I'll see you guys next time, whenever that happens. Stay safe and stay healthy and stay connected. We can obviously still do that despite these crazy times. I'll see you next time. Bye.